Hey everyone, I hope you got a chance to review the syllabus, that you've been able to secure your textbooks, and that you are ready to get going for the semester here. So, what I'd like to talk about a little bit today is kind of the why behind our course and how we came to include a crisis trauma and grief course in our program. So, you all are certainly aware that crisis situations are increasingly prevalent in the community broadly, in the overall society today, and uh, that certainly the overall crises uh, can affect our work and the people we work with. In fact, across counseling settings, research tells us that crisis is a primary concern for counselors as they work to serve and provide services for their clients. This is especially true for counselors who are in settings. School violence has more than doubled in the past 45 years, and in that same time period, suicide rates have increased 60%. 71% of us will work with a client who has attempted suicide at some point in time. This is hard to believe, but 23% of us will experience a completion of a client suicide. Uh, Again, thinking about school for a moment, there's a significant increase in the number of students who are seeking help for serious mental health problems. The Sandy Hook shooting, the Aurora Theater shooting, the Virginia Tech massacre, uh, many of the recent large-scale natural disasters, the 9/11 attacks. These all presented such unique challenges that traditional response plans were inadequate. And this created an awareness that no single defined response can be applied to all situations. Even within kind of smaller local crises, we find that depending on locality, the needs of the community are going to be different based on culture, geography, and other regionally dependent factors. So realization of all these changing dynamics led to increased research focus on improving counselor responses to crises and disaster. Uh, After Hurricane Katrina, for example, at the state level, Mississippi developed, the American Red Cross has revised their regulations on who can be trained and considered as a crisis response worker. Um, Various kind of authorities in crisis management emphasize the need for training ahead of time among professionals in order to effectively deal with crises. So as part of this broader movement, it becomes obviously important that counselors are prepared to be able to be nimble, improvise, adapt, make decisions on the fly that are grounded in flexible crisis response theory, and then at the same time, realities associated with the specific crisis. So again, reflecting this growing awareness, in 2009, the CACREP standards, CACREP is the organization that accredits counseling programs. The CACREP standards were updated to include specific guidance for crisis training for counselors. in there's standards that are outlined for all mental health counselors, and then other sub-disciplines as well: marriage, couples, marriage and family, uh, school. And specifically, what the CACREP standards involve is mandating that uh, we are adept in terms of dealing with things like suicide risk and domestic violence. That school counselors, for example, need to be able to understand emergency management systems and be plugged into the way that those work, and that uh, counselors should be prepared to take a leadership role in crisis situations. And that across fields there should be kind of a standardized perspective on how. So, in short, because there's been an increase and continues to be an increase in the levels of public crises, we need to be prepared to handle these crises. Uh, Agency counselors and school counselors, and certainly in rehabilitation, a lot of us will spend a good amount of time working for agencies. A lot of times folks in agency situations are really there on the front lines to assist when a crisis has occurred. So CACREP has established that graduates of counseling programs, and these changes occur against a backdrop, and I apologize again for the kind of continued focus on school, but sometimes the research will have more data on one specialty than another, and clearly we've got more data about school counselors. Certainly many of the broader points can be generalized to the field at large. 10.6% of school counselors, only 10.1% of, 10.6% of school counselors reported taking specific courses geared towards crisis and trauma intervention. 57% of school counselors reported feeling inadequately or minimally prepared to handle crisis situations. And shifting back to counseling more broadly, there was an emerging belief that there was a lack of attention to crisis intervention in counselor training, and this is absolutely true. As most of you know, we are in the process of becoming CACREP accredited, whereas historically as a rehabilitation program we have been accredited by CORE, Council on Rehabilitation Education. Only as we shift to our CACREP accreditation are we required to include the crisis, trauma, and grief course, hence the brand new course. So ourselves, even here at WVU, and at any actually rehab program I've been involved with prior to coming to WVU, we too are historically guilty of insufficient preparation related to crisis counseling. So the good news is that now we, and actually almost all counseling programs are going to be in the process of shifting to a CACREP accreditation. So as a field, we are going to be increasing our fluency and our abilities to function in crisis situations, because what you're going to see is other universities are also adding crises courses to their rehabilitation and mental health counseling programs as required by their accreditation. Now I want to shift here for a second and talk about social cognitive theory, and specifically a construct within social cognitive theory called self-efficacy. What self-efficacy tells us is that behavior, and including behavior related to skills and abilities, occurs as a result of an interaction between internal personal factors, between our actual actions, and the environment as well. And within that system, individuals' thoughts and beliefs about themselves actually impact their ability to do things. So this makes sense, right? That our beliefs about our capabilities to perform in a certain capacity are going to actually be reflective of our abilities to perform in a given capacity. To me, it's even more straightforward to think about it in terms of, well, if I feel confident that I can do something, odds are I am likely able to do it. So the idea here is that by increasing our beliefs about our abilities, we increase our motivation and actual ability to accomplish certain goals. So along those lines, individuals with high levels of self-confidence or self-efficacy regarding their own abilities to approach specific tasks are more likely to succeed than folks who don't have that same high level of confidence in their abilities. Folks with increased self-efficacy can approach threatening situations and frame them as challenges rather than actual threats. So really, summing it up, the general idea is our beliefs about how good we are at something have a material impact on how good we actually are at something. Now, I know this seems like a little bit of a detour, but really I'm leading back into a study of counselors and counselor behavior related to training in the... So three researchers, Sawyers, Peters, and Willis, conducted a study focused on 34 graduate counseling students who were administered an instrument, a test, and an assessment called the Counselor Self-Efficacy Scale before and after they completed a course focused on the role for counselors in crisis situations. And what the researchers found is that counseling students who studied theoretical strategies for approaching crises, counseling students who studied the realities faced by the clients that they will be serving, and that counseling master's students who studied theoretical intervention models felt increased confidence in their abilities to make effective decisions for supporting clients during crisis situations. So again, the study of theoretical strategies, realities associated with client situations, and theoretical intervention models increased counselor self-efficacy for working with folks in crisis situations. Now, if you take a look back again at your syllabus, and as you move through the course throughout the rest of the semester, you'll see that this is largely what our course is going to be focused on. Theoretical strategies and models in the dynamics faced by clients. So the approach that we're taking together in this course aligns well with actual empirical research that tells us that we will be well equipped to deal with crises and traumatic situations once we're on the other side of the course, so that you end up in your role feeling confident that you can rise to the challenges that are presented with crisis situations. Now, for those of you that are interested, the complete study that I just kind of gave a quick overview of is also in our week 1 course module, so you should be able to see it, or should have been able to see it on your way into accessing this lecture. And you are more than welcome to download and read that study, and feel free to shoot any questions my way. So I hope that's reasonably brief for everyone, not quite 20 minutes. I know there's a lot of reading for this week. Folks have questions and are kind of anxious to get started on their assignments. So I'm going to try and keep it short for us. As I say, if you have any questions or concerns, feel free to shoot me an email and I will get right back to you. Thanks, everybody. Have a great week.